Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and you guys don't understand how much this means to actually be back. I have not recorded a new episode in about 3 months. That's right, if you've been paying attention. All the last 3 months or so have been on pre-record. So I took a little hiatus from recording, and it was very refreshing, very rewarding. And even more than that, it was great to just hear the amazing Michael Nye join me for those 12 weeks of Joe Nye Loves Action Force. If you didn't catch the last few months worth of episode podcasting of the Joe and Joe podcast, please go back and check it out. We did a deep 12-issue dive into all the Action Force Weekly comics published by Marvel UK back in the day. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to hear that. We recorded that over the summertime. So for me, I was a good distance from it, and I got to hear it. And then I got to hear your reactions. For those of you who reached out on social or, on send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Just letting me know how much you appreciated the show. That meant a whole lot. And I passed it along to Michael. He enjoyed himself. I don't think that's the last time you're going to hear Michael on this show. During the hiatus, I got that massive Battle Action Force compendium set, which is enormous. So I'm not even coming close to tackling that yet on this show, but I have a feeling I'll be touching on that at some point in the future. That's that big hardcover, literally massive compendium set. So it's great to be back in the saddle. I hope you guys had a wonderful fall heading into the holiday season, etc. and so forth. I really hope you enjoyed last week's Crazy Magazine talk. That was an awesome interview. We cut that during the off time, and then it took me a couple months to get it up. And boy, what a wonderful conversation with the Marks there. I really, really do. I can't say it enough. I love the stories behind the stories of the things that influenced the things that we love. So, hearing about Larry Hama's early days right before, literally leading into him working on G.I. Joe, I really thought it was great to hear those stories and check that book out. So I really hope you guys checked out the magazine that dared to be stupid, the book that's out. It's just really, really cool. So big shout out to Michael and I, big shout out to the Marks. And a huge shout out to you and to you new listeners who have come aboard, who maybe you were Action Force fans and you were like, what's this Joe on Joe show? I'll tell you what the show is. This show is the podcast that's been around for 9 years now, which is crazy. I got my little Twitter reminder that 9 years ago was when I started setting up all my social medias and stuff. So been around for 9 years, talking about basically old school G.I. Joe stuff. We started out as a cartoon MST3K style watch along. We covered all the episodes of all the cartoons. So this is an evergreen podcast. Look through my back issue, so to speak, and find an episode of the cartoon that you loved and watch along with it. This really isn't, we normally don't do what we're going to be doing today, which is reviewing something more modern. And after we got through pretty much all the cartoons, even Extreme, I know I didn't lose it, but it's there. We discussed, I took the show into a little bit of a different direction and did really focus on solo shows. A lot of this was during COVID, and, did solo breakdowns of, each issue of the G.I. Joe Marvel comic book, So I refer to that part as Joe and Joe Illustrated era of G.I. Joe, of Joe and Joe, rather. So there's definitely more of that to come in the future. And there's certainly some... I never got around to doing special missions because I didn't pause doing them. I wanted to barrel through Real American Hero. So then by the time I got to the end of Real American Hero, I kind of had passed up the special missions era. So let's just say it was a bad tactical decision. I should have done them concurrently, but I didn't, thinking I was going to circle back. So I need to circle back and finish those. We also did some Draw with Joe stuff that can be hosted. You can see those videos on either on our Patreon at patreon.com/JoeandJoePod, or you can certainly check out our YouTube channel, Joe and Joe Pod on YouTube, and you'll see those videos where I did some Drawing with Joe episodes. And again, there's a couple more there I need to finish out. I need to finish out the final issue of How to Draw G.I. Joe from back in the day. So it's like all this little cleanup stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, why is he talking so introspectively? Well, I'm talking so introspectively because there are, a lot of new listeners from the various things I was talking about. We talked about some new stuff in the last few months. But also, I think, and this is me not writing this out. This is me forming this with my mouth. The future of this show is going to change. I don't know what it's going to be. I'll be brutally honest with you. During the hiatus, my plan was to figure that out. And then the hiatus came and went, and I didn't figure that out. But what I do know for sure is that the weekly episodes are likely going to go away, and this show is probably going to move to a more irregular schedule. I don't want to commit to anything right now. Maybe it'll be bi-weekly. Maybe at the minimum monthly. I'll check in monthly for sure at the minimum. There's some other creative things that I want to pursue, and this is I love this show. I'm never going to stop doing some version of this show, so don't worry about that. As far as our Patreon, don't worry, Patreon listeners. I will be reaching out to you. I'm gonna figure out what that looks like very shortly. Our amazing sponsors, the Movies and Meal podcast. You guys sponsored me for something like 5 years, I think. So good, so amazing. They are a wonderful, wonderful podcast. So if you're hearing this, you need to check them out. They talk about all the latest movies, all the latest meals. Recently, I saw what is it called? The companion about the spoiler alert. It's in the trailer, which is crazy because they hit it and then they put out a trailer that showed you that the girl was a robot. Really, really good. It's got that Sophie Thatcher, I think, and Huey from The Boys. What's his name? Dennis Quaid's kid. Who's a really good actor in and of itself. Quaid. Jack Quaid. That's his name. Yeah, it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I did watch a few movies on the plane recently. I was traveling, did a little bit of traveling. Went down to Mexico City. And first of all, if you've never been, you should. It's a lot of fun. Second of all, we went to a Lucha Libre show. If you've never done that, it's amazing. Huge shout out to my boy Pablo Persona, Romero Estevez, Pablo Persona on social. He's a huge, massive wrestling fan, and he had me on his show recently. I was a guest voice on Madison on Air, which if you guys follow on Twitter, I was retweeting those episodes out. It was blessed to do a voice on that. And all these things come from doing this show and meeting all of you guys. It comes from doing this show. So this show's not over, but it's going to change a little bit. Like I literally might be back next week. Depends on. Actually, I will be back. It's funny. I will be back next week because of something that I'll tell you in a second. But it's kind of going to depend on content, Friends of mine ask a lot, like, what do you, when are you going to get around to doing Renegades, And this whole show's been a labor of, like, my personal, like, love and fascination for a real specific era of G.I. Joe. And, Renegades is a lot of fun, and I've been watching it. But, like, there's no talking parrots. That's always been my kind of inside reference there. I love G.I. Joe with a nice talking parrot, where it's just silly enough to keep that tongue firmly in cheek. And when it gets a little too, like, this is just my taste, so I get it if you disagree with that. But when it gets a little too, like, when it comes to the cartoons, a little too like just an adventure show. It doesn't hold my interest as much. And I think that's what was so special about the old school cartoon is that there were other action adventure shows on the air, certainly, but there was just something, one foot in the ridiculous that G.I. Joe had, giant vegetables, ancient Roman warriors that would pop up, talking parrots, right? That just always enamored me to G.I. Joe. So maybe I'll circle back around at some point. Maybe I'll figure out a fun way to get into some of that newer stuff. And with that, I mean some of the newer comics too, which I've absolutely enjoyed and read, but I don't know if that I want to, go through the pods on them is what I'm saying. So, maybe we'll figure out a fun way to do that. I've also been guest hosting during this, doing a lot of stuff. I think that's why I didn't get around to figuring out the new direction for the shows, because I've been too busy guesting on all these other podcasts. I've been on a very good friend of mine, Christian Horn's podcast, the Part-Time Fanboy Podcast. If you haven't seen me retweet this on Twitter or Facebook, check out the Part-Time Fanboy Podcast. And Christian and myself and our good friend Yves, we've been talking about Planet of the Apes. Since last summer, we started doing Planet of the Apes, and we did all 5 original ape movies. And we're all 3 of us are real busy. So we would find a weekend every couple of weeks or, every month or so to talk about the Apes movies. And the 3 of us love them. And we did some deep dives into them. We're, certainly not expert, but we approach it like I approach this show, with this love for it and this open eye learning about new stuff about the movies. And we really broke them down, I thought, pretty well. So we actually have plans to do that some more. So tune into the Part-Time Fanboy Podcast. Check out our Hot Ape Talk. And then keep your eyes peeled, because we enjoyed it so much. I believe we're going to be doing the animated Planet of the Apes stuff and the TV show, old school TV show Planet of the Apes stuff. I am lobbying to do at least the Tim Burton version. Both of my friends do not want to touch that, and I understand why, because I still don't like it. But I'm like, hey, it's just a movie. When in Rome. So with all that said, and I also have some new initiatives on the podcast front that I want to explore, that are different from G.I. Joe. So with all that said, I don't think I'm going to have time to devote to doing this on the weekly crunch. And frankly, I've kind of, I'm almost at the point of going through everything. So I am going to be a completist, because I am a completist in all things when it comes to collecting or, whatever. And I will be finishing the special missions, and I will be finishing the how to draw, and I will be finishing. Oh, we have to do 3D as well. That's right, because I couldn't find my 3D issues. Still haven't found those. That's the thing. Still haven't found them. But I will get around to doing them. So they will be on this feed. This feed will still be alive. I will not be turning it off for any way, any reason. And like I said, I'll be reaching out to our Patreons. And we'll figure it out there. So that's kind of the catch up for you boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and germs. That's the status of the show rolling into 2025. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, so that is all I will say for now. But I will let you know that I do have some other bigger plans. One of which was planned for last summer. But I could not get it together. So, there's some fun ideas. And, a lot of people have been talking about Cold Slither recently, which is so much fun. It was so much fun to do. I've been just randomly, meeting people who've heard Cold Slither behind the rock for so much time, behind the music. Behind the rock, yeah. So for the first time. So that's popping. Man, this weekend I met, Jeremy and Guy, who were part of J Flex and the Heart Attacks, who did our theme song. That was so great to actually meet them. We through our mutual friend, the wonderfully talented Matt Teese, who, was the spearhead for the Cold Slither music that he put together for our show. And Guy was a musician in the Cold Slither thing. So we were talking about that this weekend. It was just really great. The show's just opened up a lot of avenues and really met a lot of great people. Speaking of that, I don't give it credit enough. Opening theme song by Jay Flax and the Heart Attacks. You guys should Google them and seek them out and tell them Joe and Joe sent you, because they're awesome. So that's it. Under promise, over deliver for the rest of this year, and we'll see what happens. Having said that, the invitation is always open, and I do know that there's a couple people that reached out in the last 6 months or so to do a You on Joe. Invitation always open to do a You on Joe. So if you have something to promote, if you have something to just want to talk about, like you love Jinx, and you want to talk about Jinx, let's do it. So that invitation will always be open. I will always make time for that. And so I said there's a reason you should listen to the end of this episode, and there's a contest this week. And then what's the contest, you say? Well, today, and why is this a little bit different? Today is I'm going to be talking about the amazing After Action Report command file books that I got in the mail from my After Action Report Kickstarter. Now, this book is by Greg Agustin, and with partners in crime, Josh Eggebeen and Roger Taft. You guys know them from my show. You know them from, I know they've been guests on What's on Joe's Mind. They do some really cool stuff. So they completed the command file Kickstarter, and we're going to do a little review of it today. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk about some giveaways for some more of this stuff. Now, if you're not familiar with it, After Action Report, I would say, is the umbrella conversation piece, I would say, for just some really, really great, in-depth, specific reference guides for the G.I. Joe collector. And non-action figure. This is more about the printed materials. This is more about the data of the G.I. Joe collector out there. The books that these guys have put together over the years have just been these really insane, comprehensive. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like, I mean, they're databases, but they're printed databases. I guess encyclopedia would be it, but they're ground central for what happened in almost real time from a printing perspective of G.I. Joe. And if you know anything about me, that is so up my alley. That is so delightful. I know we've had Josh on before, and we talked about his the After Action Report that they did for the Marvel era from 1982 to 1996, where it detailed the contents of every issue. But it's more than just hey, as a storyline, here's what happened. Man, they get into like the variants of the issues. How, did this issue have a Spider-Man on the cover? Did it have a black costume Spider-Man on the cover? Where was it distributed? All to their, to their best of it, their research and knowledge. So what you have is just this massive, really great, I say massive just because it's a nice magazine-sized book with a little bit of heft to it. But it's a great way to track and catalog your own collection. They provide checklists in all of these too, so you can literally, I think Josh likes to say, beat them up. Like don't keep them in plastic. Have one to use while you're out doing your collecting thing. So they put out reports, 3 volumes of those. They've covered the Marvel years, the Devil's Due years, and then the more modern Image ones. I believe I just craned my head away to take a look, and they're over on my shelf. There's other ones. So then they turned their attention to just G.I. Joe number 21, Silent Interlude, and they put out an entire book about Silent Interlude, which after you read it, first you're like, how much can they possibly do? And sure, it's maybe half the size as the other ones, but literally on one issue of a comic book that has no dialogue to it. they put out this comprehensive book on this, which is ridiculous. And there are so many variations of the printed version of 21 out there. And in that book, which was really, really great to read, they did a lot of introspection in Larry's influence using that the silent type magazine, and how that influenced so many things after Silent Interlude was published. So you're like, okay, that's also awesome. Now what are they working on? Well, then they did the book we're going to talk about today, which is the After Action Report Command Files, which this is coming from Greg Agustin. And Greg, you did an amazing job. I can't even pretend that I'm through with this, reading this as far as it goes, but I've read all the intro pages, and I've flipped through the character profiles, and what Greg put together here is really, really dope. So we're going to get into that now, but before we dive into that, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to say, you go find them on Kickstarter, because I believe very soon, they're doing a G.I. Joe versus Transformers version of these in-depth style books. So they're going to be doing it'll be like the variations of all the issues of all the G.I. Joe Transformer crossovers, going all the way back to the original, through the Devil's Due stuff when it was with Devil's Due, and then IDW and things like that. So that is either, and I apologize for not knowing this as I'm recording this, it's blanking. I can't remember if they finished that Kickstarter or if that Kickstarter is right around the corner. But what you need to do is you need to go to afteractionreport.net, and you're going to find out everything you need to know. You can go to Kickstarter, search for After Action Report. I know that Kickstarter allows you to buy stuff from sometimes it allows you to buy stuff from the Kickstarter or from their store, directly through there. So you can find them through Kickstarter. That's how they finance these. But go to afteractionreport.net and get all the details. Who knows what the future is in store for them. I know that they were talking about doing a kind of a more portable, Josh was telling me at a show once, doing a more portable version of all the comic checklists. So it would be just something literally designed just to be kept in your pocket or in your, in your bag at a show, versus, these more square bound shelf versions of these. But setting all that aside, what Greg's put together, now Greg's the author of this with Josh and Roger helping on layout and production. Greg has put together a super comprehensive, and he calls it Volume 1. So I'm actually not sure what Volume 2 is, but I'm thinking maybe Volume 2 is his version of this for Cobra. And I can't even imagine wrapping your head around this. He took, and I believe he said he's been working on this for 10 years. So, and you could tell this is really, really cool, gang. This is not any kind of weird paid sponsorship. He took all of the characters of the team, took their file card information, referenced as many appearances as they had in, as he could, that they had in the comics and the cartoons, all iterations of the comic books, the multiple eras of toy production. So not just, 82 to 94 stuff, but all the way through 2000, I believe they say it up front. And he combined them as if they were real adventures of one character, of all the time Spirit appeared in all those iterations. How can we take the best moments of Spirit and make them into one soldier? And then applied their expertise to modern military rankings. So it's it is like a modern update of if you were getting a dossier breakdown of a realistic modern G.I. Joe team of what would these guys be, all their adventures they've had for the last 40 years. Oh my God, we're that old. Yeah, I'm going to turn 50 this summer. We're old. All the adventures they've had for the last 40 years. How can we sum it up? And then in order to organize it, to kind of keep the spice into it, they're actually organized by specialist teams. And I'm not just talking about Tiger Force and Night Force and things like that, but like, how would the military actually break them out? So A teams, B teams, Delta teams, things like that. And I'm not the military expert, so don't worry. I had nothing to. I'm going to get that part of it wrong. But what they did is they broke them up into teams. So as you're reading it, so like they do have like a Arctic environment team. So even though, in the toys, Blizzard and Bushido, Snow Bushido, right, and Frostbite and Iceberg and Snow Job and Snowstorm. I'm flipping through it now. And Sub-Zero and Whiteout. They were never like all on like a. Slaughter's Marauders type of sub team. This book does that for that, and it certainly does have a really very comprehensive what do they call it? Atlas in the back, Atlas. What do you call that? Index, index in the back. So if you're just looking for let's see, Scoop, it'll tell you what page to find Scoop on. But that's not the fun of this. The fun of this is seeing them organized as if they were real, and it's really great. So, like, I'm just going to read from their page. It's like page 7. And it's such a great idea that they kind of give you this walkthrough of how to explore the book. It is intended to offer fans and newcomers alike the chance to look at Real American Hero from a whole new perspective instead of being presented in alphabetical or chronological. Characters are assigned to a military unit according to their role, specialization, or training expressed in their respective action figure file card. Scope of this character span from 82 all the way up to the 50th anniversary 3 3/4 lines. Military units detachments called the A teams are defined by mission or set environmental expertise, and they're modeled after today's special operation forces. Detachments are explained in pages from a Senate subcommittee briefing, which is awesome. It's like the jugglers, right? And then finally, you'll find special ops declassified sections in each chapter that provide additional information about the world of U.S. Special Operations. So it's cool. Like, it's cool. And, the table of contents is, he breaks it up by, like, there's the Alpha Team, the Bravo Squad, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, India, which I believe is all the Tiger Force people, Kilo, Sierra. Like, it's great. If you're a I've come to learn and love the JoJo community as a kind of like there seems to me to be the types that really love the military side of it, and then there's more that love the action adventure side of it, like the more fun side of it. And certainly there's people who do both. So this book tickles both of those. This has all the elements of all those animated and comic book cartoon adventures, as well as an actual real world military application to it. I don't think I realized what this book was going to be when I kickstarted it. I just trusted Josh and Roger and Greg, because they've done such good work in their other ones, that this was going to be kind of cool. But I got this book. It arrived. I believe they had some shipping issues with the printer, which was, I did talk to Josh about that, and it was a complete nightmare. And kudos to Josh for sorting that out, like, for real. He walked me through it. We saw him at one of the Joe shows last summer, I believe. And boy, what a hassle that sounded like. So he had to work through all that. They finally got this book shipped during the holidays. And it's better than I really thought. And I'm not just saying that because he thanks me in the book. I swear to God, that is not the only reason I'm saying that. In fact, I was surprised to see that as I was reading this book. I did not think I would be thanked in that. So the Joe and Joe podcast is mentioned, as well as me. But like, let's look at Duke, for example. So, Duke's certainly on the Alpha Team, and they've got everything's laid out in very much the traditional file. Oh, that's the other thing that's really great about this. From a research perspective, Greg has put together a detailed explanation of all the file card stuff over the years. Now, like all the types and styles of file cards that Hasbro put out, when they first started, what do they look like? What were the tweaks and changes they made to them over the years, all the way through the 50th anniversary line. And for someone who primarily really has only gotten into the first run, through 94, seeing all the little tweaks and changes in one place, explaining all that in one place was really, really helpful. So, like Duke, we go to Duke here. This is they've got ratings for his skills, which I believe are like engineering, medical. They explain all this in the front. Let me go there. So they list all the skills. And, oh, there it is. Yeah, like weapons proficiencies and things like that. From like a 1 to a 7. So if you're excellent with weapons, you'd be a 7. But in this case, and combat engineer, you know, if you're not really great, you'd be like a 3 or a 2. You know, 1 is untrained, 2 is civilian knowledge, 3 is basic training, 4 is advanced training. Then you go to field experience and veteran experience, and then domain expert. So like you know everything about it, right? So he's got that. So this is very much like the old school order of battle, like the official handbook to the Marvel Universe. And again, if you've been listening to this show for 9 years, you know I love that stuff. So on the Duke page, they've got, it's all stylized like the original file card. There's a picture of him from the Sunbow cartoon. There's his write-up, like his personality write-up. There's a photo, I guess not a photo, but it's a picture of him from his first appearance in the comic book. Then there's a reference from his appearance in Resolute. There's his kind of photorealistic file card that was that was shaped like the ID card. I believe that was from like the mid 2000s. And then over here we've got this page full of all his appearances from all the cartoons to the Devil's Due series to the Spy Troops, Reloaded. Like, what has he looked like over the years, even all the way up to we get the stunningly handsome Channing Tatum. It's just really cool. And sure, you're like, yeah, Duke. There's a ton of information about Duke. Oh no, we go to Frostbite. That's what's great about this book. Is you go to Frostbite, and he's the Snowcat driver. So you show when was he ever shown in the comics? Oh, there's a picture of Frostbite from the comics. You get his name. You get his reference in Valor versus Venom. You know. Let's see. Now some of the guys, certainly a cold front, wind chill. They didn't have a lot of cross media appearances, but they're still listed here. They're still categorized. Greg took the time to just really like realistic them up, you know, to if you could say that. And for someone again who focused on the 90 up to 94, like I just flipped to a page and there's the dude Hacker, who I believe came from the Devil's Due era. I don't remember much about Hacker. You know, he's not top of mind, but I'm going to use this book to broaden my horizon of the literary lives of these dudes. I was going through over the winter break because I wanted to dig into. I really want to dig into some of this literature that I have that I just never made time to read, and so I was digging through Dan Klingensmith's book, and his books are so great. This is the making of G.I. Joe, creating G.I. Joe, the like the 15-volume set. And if you've never read those, you need to check them out. Dan's always running, or he's been running sales since the holiday. I think he's looking to clear out some inventory. If you haven't gotten those 15 volumes, move on them because they're amazing, and they're very toy focused, right? So as I was reading those, funny, I spent way too much money. I would read those, find some cool obscure character I didn't know anything about, and then buy them. You know, so if you run an eBay store and you saw some dude randomly buy oddball characters for probably too much money. I didn't want to bargain on anything. I just wanted to buy it. That was me. That was me, guys. So if you're running an eBay store and you saw some over the holidays, some really oddball characters get cleaned out of your inventory, that was me, because his book was so, it just sparked this fire in me to go, oh man, there's so many characters that I've just never given a lot of attention to, right? Well, his book covers just the figures, the plastic created physical figures through 94. After Action Report that we're talking about here, this is these are all the characters beyond that There's so many characters in this book that I absolutely know nothing about. 100% I don't know anything about them. Because they were part of an era that I read, but maybe they were only mentioned once in Devil's Due, and I haven't gone back and reread that era, or maybe they never were. They were just part of like the 50th anniversary line, which I never collected, or maybe the like the 3-packs that came out in like 97, 98, 99 era. I never got it. Really haven't gotten into those. We'll say yet for now, but check my wallet in a few years. And this is going to teach me so much more about those characters. And I cannot wait to get into this. I do think it's going to save me a little money though, because not all of them, I am locked into collecting only 94. So a lot of these characters I will try to avoid getting, but I know it's going to open a floodgate. I just know it is. So that's what this book is. And I think that's the meat of this show. Like, this is really good. And I'm really proud of these guys. Like, they did a great job. They even included William the Refrigerator Perry. And what's there not to love about William the Refrigerator Perry? It's a solid book. So, listeners, I hope this sounded good to you, because this is really cool. Go to afteractionreport.net. Check this out. Get yourself a copy. And what's that you say? I don't have a copy yet. But, maybe times are tight. Like, listen, eggs are expensive, using that old trope. So here's what we're going to do, guys. For the next, I'll leave this open for the next month. So this show drops on February 19th. So I'll leave this open until March 19th. If you've won something from me before, let's spread the largesse here. So please don't enter. But anyone who emails me at joeonjoepod@gmail.com, send me an email. Say you want to enter the, we'll call it the after action, put in your subject line, put in after action report contest. Anyone that emails me will be entered to win one of 3 After Action Report books. I've got an extra copy of Command Files. I've got an extra copy of the first volume of the Marvel era of the traditional After Action Report. And then I've got an extra copy of the G.I. Joe Silent Interlude, number 21 issue. So I've got 3 After Action Reports, guys. This is over $100 worth of value, I believe, based on Kickstarter costs, that you're going to be able to claim for free. So everyone who enters will be, thrown into a hat, so to speak, by March 19th, whatever day that is. What day that? Hold on, let me look at a calendar. You get an idea. Yeah, that's a Wednesday. Perfect. So I will announce the winners. That's it. I'll announce the winners for the March 19th show. So if you're hearing this, it's before March 19th. Send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. Put After Action Report Contest in your subject line. And I will pull randomly 3 names out of that hat. If you've won something before, maybe think about sharing, letting someone else win. But you know what? Also, you never know. Shoot me an email. You never know what I got. I got all kinds of ephemera over here. I love to mail out to people. But yeah, if you've won something before, let someone else win. But I can't wait to share this stuff with you. And I love sending gifts and books to listeners and new friends and old friends and such like that. So send me that email, and I will draw a winner for the March 19th show. And I think that's all I have to say for today. Again, there's a good chance I'll be back next week, but there's a chance I might not be. So we're just going to live life. And life is good here, though. That's the thing, though. Life is good. Life is good over here at Casa de Slepsky. Toilet is thriving in her scholarly studies over at Cobra Cleaning Academy. They're teaching her new techniques for toilet bowl buffing. Both my super special guest stars, Mary Jane Watson and Shirley Feeney, are with us. Mary Jane, while we were in the offing, turned 16 years old. Stop it. And so everything's good, we're chilling. So I love you all, and I'm so grateful to be back. And yeah, now you Joe much more about the After Action Report from Greg Agustin with Josh Eggebeen and Roger Taft pitching in. And Joeing is half the battle.